Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Silvius Grant, and I am here to present Everyone Deserves a Chance. Today, we have a special guest. Thank you, Marius, for accepting my challenge. It's going to be a friendly conversation. We're talking about financials in general. And Marius is a financial and business consultant, also a public speaker. He's a real estate and cryptocurrency investor. Marius arrived in the United States in June of 2012. The 22-year-old Romanian had aspirations of achieving the American dream. I really like that. I'm reading your bio right now, and I love it.
Thank you.
With $350 in his pocket and one small suitcase, he began working as a cook in a restaurant. A few months later, he moved to Chicago, where he currently resides. Marius' background in electrical engineering led him to work in construction and eventually became an electrician. He quickly moved up in the industry in just 5 years, broadening his skill sets and realizing his potential to helping others achieve financial freedom through his current businesses. Now a financial and business consultant, he has helped hundreds of people take charge of their finances, and more than 20 companies reach 6 figures in sales in less than 12 months. Wow, I'm impressed so far. I'm going to come back and ask you some questions here. Marius, as a public speaker, has been invited to speak at local real estate investing meetups, schools, to guide students through what it takes to be a business owner, and is the author, unpublished, of the business book for entrepreneurs titled 60 Minutes of Business. As a real estate investor, he completed over 20 residential redevelopments in 3 years while working full-time as a union electrician. Additionally, he built and sold a 37 rental unit portfolio in Akron, Ohio. After recent shifts in the real estate market, he transitioned towards digital assets and moved his holdings into cryptocurrencies, currently holding a sizable personal portfolio under his own management. With the launching of Golden Spades Academy, Marius wants to share his experiences and strategies in order to maximize wealth and create financial freedom. Man, I'm reading this and I really have to thank you for accepting the challenge. And as I'm looking through, I see some similarities that my immigrant story has with this beginning and upbringing. But what I'm really impressed is the amount of knowledge that you have to have in order to create and develop so many businesses. This must come from your entrepreneurial spirit more than anything else. So maybe you want to take us a little bit through your background and explain us, how did you end up on one night, with this great idea, hey, I'm not going to be a worker, I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
Hi, and thank you again for the invite. It's a pleasure. We had a couple of conversations before this podcast, and everything comes back to me as as a kind of retrospect, right? I'm looking where I was about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, right, and where I am now. And the whole idea clicked for me one day. People who are from Chicago, they know Lakeshore Drive, which is a street running alongside the Lake Michigan, right? And I was driving, I think it was a Tuesday around noon, and I saw there is a place called the Playpen where people gather with boats and party and stuff like that. They're huge gatherings, like you're talking probably hundreds of boats, right? And seeing that picture on the Lake Michigan, I was thinking, what these people are doing, right? That are here in the middle of the day on a Tuesday when everybody is at work, right? Technically, what these people are doing, like how they can afford to do that, right? So the whole idea came to mind is like, okay, so if I want more money, I gotta work more, right? So being an electrician back then, I started taking side jobs, right? I got to the point where I opened up my own company. So I was working for a company and running my own company as an electrician, right? I worked more, I made more money, right? But within about 6 months or so, I burnt out. Literally, I was working between 90 to 100 hours a week. It was a crazy schedule. I was working nights, I was working days, I was trying to fulfill my client needs, and I forgot to fulfill my own needs, right? To sleep, to eat properly, to take care of myself, right? So I did made more money, right? In the retrospect, but in the same time, I lost touch of life, right? I didn't have a life for myself. I was so much into work that I forgot to live, right? And then, the more you connect with people, you get to the point where you actually start talking with more people, go to networking events, right? You connect with like-minded people, and you hear about investments. So what are investments, right? Where can I put my money, right? And first thing that popped out, it was real estate, right? And I met a group of people. They say, well, come to these classes, that this national brand, right, is holding, their meetups, their people in the network that are going to help you and so forth. I'm not going to name any names. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but come and come to this 3-day event. That was the sales pitch, right? Come to this 3-day event. The event was packed with information, packed with value, packed with everything, right? And you meet a lot of people that are very excited. You go and pay $35,000 and you join, right, this huge network of people, right? Which by the end of the day, some of them are willing to help, some of them they don't really care. They're doing their own thing, right? So I started getting my feet wet into real estate. Further on, you realize that there is one thing in the book or in a course or in a PDF file that they give you, and it's a total different story when you're actually doing it live in person, being in the trenches and talking with contractors and trying to fulfill schedules and trying to have materials delivered on time and dealing with back orders and things like that. And the whole idea of investing in real estate changed for me, right? I had to figure out, hey, I need to do something different, right? What I've been taught so far, it doesn't work. It doesn't apply in my market, let's say. I need to, build my own team. I have to rely, more on the people I know versus, trying to get help from one person or from the other, right? So, to give you a short example, what I did, I started flipping houses, and I got two general contractors, one working on one house, another one working on the other house. Us seeing the projects going, right? It was a quick idea that came to mind. Is like, hey, how about I combine the electrician from this guy? Even though I was an electrician, right? I was too expensive to do my own flips.
That's funny.
So I say, how about I take the electrician from this general contractor and I take the plumber from this contractor, right? And I take the carpenter from the other and I combine them under one, right? And that was the key that kind of pretty much helped me do 21 projects in 3 years while having a full-time job, was the fact that I created my team, what in my mind was the perfect team, right? The projects were running smooth. I was creating the scopes of work with the SQ numbers, right? From Home Depot or from Menards, right? Exactly, my general contractor knew exactly what goes into that bathroom, from tile to shower heads to toilets to vanities, light fixtures. Pretty much everything was laid out in the scope of work. So my contractor knew exactly what goes into the house, right? So that was kind of, the high point in my real estate career while I was flipping was the fact that I was able to put together the perfect team, or, in my eyes, it was the perfect team, right? I was able to combine people from different general contractors, like subcontractors, and put them under one, and they did a really great job. Like, I was going probably once a week to check on the projects. I always had pictures, in my email with the progress. I always had pictures with the problems that arise during the construction. Never had an issue with permits, right, and things like that. So everything was done the proper way, just because I was able to put together the whole team, right?
All right. So now I understand. I kind of follow the same scenario where I bought a house and I started doing the work myself, but I was working the trenches just like you. I'm a surveyor, a union surveyor in New York City. You're an electrician. So our trades are fairly similar. And I started kind of the same way, but now looking back, um, what would you advise a new person that starts, let's say, falling in the footsteps? He's a tradesman and he's thinking of creating a new avenue of income. Would you look back and say, hey, you should start with a fix and flip? Because if I didn't have that experience, I would not build the business that I'm doing today. That's kind of how I see it. What would you say to a new person that wants to do that?
If I meet somebody that wants to get their feet wet into real estate, probably I would recommend um, the whole spectrum, right? And we'll have more discussions during the next episodes. But in order to get into the business, you gotta have the right mindset. The mindset is the foundation that you build the business on, right? Without that, it's pretty much a no-go, right? If you think as an employee, you'll never succeed as a business owner, right? If you calculate your return based on hourly wage, you will never make it, right? Entrepreneurs, they don't calculate their income on an hourly base. They calculate their income based on the value they provide to their clients, right? So that's an example of the right mindset, right?
All right, let me go
The,
back
the,
then and ask this. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the next thing is to know the business, right? To have a high income skill, right? What's that high income skill, right? If I want to get, okay, I'm an electrician, right? I'll open up an electrical company. I can't go and open up a plumbing company. Why? Because I don't know the business, right? Is that I hope this makes sense, but
Absolutely.
in my eyes, it makes sense, right? So whoever wants to get into real estate, they gotta know the business, right? They gotta know what they're getting into, right? They gotta learn the skill, right? And that's even through courses or through mentors, or reaching out to certain people in certain areas where they actually need help, right? And that's what I'm always recommending is, hey, learn the business first, right? Then you can go and do this strategy, which is called wholesaling, right? Trying to find off-market properties, people that, let's say, um, for sale by owners, right? They don't want to sell with the realtors, they don't want to pay the commission, right? But you can be the middleman between that seller and an investor that is looking to flip a house, right? You can be the middleman and make a small commission, right? Some realtors out there, they're going to say this is illegal, you can't wholesale, blah, 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 blah. If done right with the proper paperwork, it's legal. You can do that all day long. You can call it a referral fee. You don't have to call it a commission, right? Because technically a commission, you got to be licensed to take a commission, but as a referral fee, you don't need any sort of license, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
they can start with that. right? How about I make the connection between this house and this investor, and I make, let's say, 5 grand or 10
Yeah,
grand
absolutely.
on the right. So that's the easiest way to get into real estate.
To learn the actual
And
trade of the.
requires little to no capital. It might require some capital to do a little bit of PR or a little bit of marketing on your end so people know what you're doing, right? That means a website, a little bit of SEO, right? Maybe a social media manager that does some social media posts for you, right? And things like that. So it requires very little capital to begin with in order to start generating income, right? Once
Yeah.
you reach to a certain point, then yes, you can go into flipping, right? If you have the capital, go directly into flipping, because that's where you start seeing a better return on your investment.
A faster way of
Right.
making money rather than
It's a
gain.
faster way to increase your capital, right? And then once you flipped, some properties get into rentals, right? Start buying a two flat, right, or a duplex, right? Start buying a 3 unit or an entry level 4 unit, right? That it's still not commercial. You can live in one of the units, rent the other three, right? You can do house hacking, right? This way. That way you don't have expenses, right? You're living for free because all the other 3 units combined are paying all your expenses plus the mortgage, right? So you're covered. Technically, you're living for free, right? And then once you have enough experience on how to run a 4 unit building, right? Go and acquire a 20 unit building or a 40 unit, right? Go into commercial, right? And commercial real estate, it's so vast. You can talk about multifamily, you can talk about office buildings, you can talk about storage units, right?
Yes.
It's so vast that you gotta kind of pick and choose what's your niche, right, over there when it comes to commercial real estate.
Yeah, on the commercial space, I can touch base a little, but I want to take you back into the first phase of this journey because you mentioned it where we went very quickly over it. You said you need the specific mindset. And I don't know how your process was, but I know that mine, I was in the worker mentality. I was in the 9 to 5, which for me was like 7 to 3:30. And I was looking weekends only. Weekends were my getaways. So for me, it took a major life-changing event to shift my mentality from the worker to the entrepreneur and to want it to become somebody else or something bigger than what I was at the time. For me, it was the birth of my child. When I first had my first child, there wasn't that aha moment that everybody's talking about. It took about 2-3 months to realize that under that kind of income that I had between me and my wife, we were not able to offer much to our child. So that was my wake up moment. And that very moment, I remember calling my accountant at the time and I asked her, "Do you know a millionaire?" And she's like, "I do, but I'm not going to be able to give you a name or a phone number." I'm like, "Well, is there any way I can meet one of the millionaires that you know?" And luckily, she said, "Yes, you know what? I have a very good friend of mine who is going to take your call." And that was my first contact ever with a millionaire. And he reached out to me a few months later. We ended up meeting. We had the first talk. And what the guy told me at the time, he says, "Silvius, you don't know anything about money. You don't know anything about business. Your mentality is very low. You got to start reading and you have to start going to real estate meetups or any kind of meetups of that matter to understand how money are moving and, get the history of money." So what was it for you? This is my question, because I want to recommend a couple of books and I want you to make some recommendations if you can of things that you did when you started your journey. Because it was that moment, that pivotal moment when you noticed that those people were, partying in the boats and having the money and the time. And from there on, how did you bridge that gap to go to shift the the mentality, because eventually it seems like everybody has to go through that same process.
Right. So if I have to talk about that aha moment, probably that was the turning point for me, right? It took a while, like it did with you, right? It wasn't instant, but somewhere in the subconscious mind, it was there, right? It's just I didn't connect the dots yet, right? At that moment when I was driving my car, right? But it was in the back of my mind thinking, hey, I gotta do something more, right? And that all it takes sometimes is just one little thing, right? And some people, they say, oh, I don't believe in the law of attraction, or the universe, or in God, or whatever the case might be, right? But I can give you countless examples of things that I wanted. I kind of forgot about them, and one day I had them, right? I wanted so bad to drive a Lexus SUV. And then one day it's like, I took my fiance, it's like, hey, let's go see this SUV. I just want to test drive it, right? And then once that happened, we took the drive, and then it's like, okay, let's buy it,
Let's buy it. I'm laughing because I did kind of the same thing when it comes down to cars.
Right. So, that's one of the things, right? Another very famous example is like when you're late, right? And you're trying to rush to get somewhere, right? And you're hitting every red light, right?
Yep.
Every red light on the road, you're just hitting it, right? You can't pass that, right? That's the thing you put in your mind, right? It's like no matter what you do, it's like, hey, you're late, it's done, right? It's not like you missed an opportunity or something, right? I personally, I always leave my house at least half an hour earlier. I'm dealing with the traffic in Chicago. I gotta have at least half an hour cushion, right? Just to be on the safe side, right? I hate being late personally. So for me, being on time, it's very important, right? But coming back to your question, probably, it took a while. I didn't know how I'm gonna get there, right? I didn't know how I'm gonna make it happen, right? But the first thought came to me as, hey, you want more money, you gotta work more, right? That was the first instinct, right? That employee mentality, like you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
So that was, hey, you want more money, you gotta work more, right? The employee mentality. So then, from there, you just meet people, you talk to people, you kind of, you start meeting, millionaires, right? Like one good encounter, I was working at a Bentley dealership installing some light fixtures, and I see a guy in like khaki shorts and like a no brand t-shirt with flip flops, and the man purse on the side. He walked into the dealership. Well, I would say around 50 years old or so, right? So not too old, right? Or not young, not right, in the 20s. So the guy is like looking like off the street, like literally you wouldn't think that the guy will gonna buy anything, right? And if you say, hey, I saw it on the website, I saw this Bentley, I like this color, I want to take it to a test drive. The salesman, almost you can see the smirk on his face, right? It's like, so you wanna tell me that you wanna buy a Bentley, right? Looking like this, right? He was all dressed in a suit, like like a good salesman. And they agreed. They took the car for a test drive. They came about an hour later, right? And it happened. I was literally by the office over there, by that salesman office, and they came back and said, well, how do you like the car? Like, do you want to do any changes? Like, how if you're ready to make the purchase, blah blah blah, right? So the guy was like, yeah, I'm ready to buy it. And the guy is like, okay, well, then we're gonna run your credit score, see what kind of financing are we gonna do. And the guy is like, no, I'm not financing it. I'm paying it cash. And he pulled $250,000 from his men purse
Oh
to buy
man.
the Bentley, right? So this
Wow.
is kind of the stories that change you over time, right? Um, and you see other things, right? You see people that don't really show off, but they have all the money in the world, right? On the other hand, you have millionaires that are very cocky, and they have that "I don't give a shit about you" mentality, right, and so forth. And this kind of experience, they're influencing you over time, and kind of give you an idea what kind of person to be and the kind of person of not to be, right? And everything comes together, right? Everything goes back into that mindset, right? Because you can change your mindset. You don't have to be stuck into one place, right? The mindset is changeable. That's how you go from an employee to a business owner, or from a business owner to an investor, right? That's the path, by changing the mindset, changing the way of thinking.
Well, that's what I want to take you. So when the next episodes, we're gonna go that route because I'm very interested to learn everything. Like this is the stepping stone was this I would say cumulative set of experiences that determined you to go into doing bigger things, right? But what is it for a guy that starts today? Let's say now, because he's listening to us, he's going to connect his own dots, and he still doesn't know exactly where to start. I know you and I didn't mention this. We met at a Tony Robbins event in 2018. It was a Chicago Tony Robbins event, a 4-day event, Unleash the Power Within. We did not personally meet, but we met on the chat.
Right.
It was a chat for the group, and I saw your name, and I don't know if it was you or me. Somebody said hi, hello, and then we start talking, and here we are today, so many years later. But like, is that something that you recommend? Like one of those big events? It wasn't a huge price tag, as far as I remember. It was just a big mindset event.
Right. It's a big mindset event, and talking about Tony Robbins, that event again, cumulative, contributed to the mindset, because once you go and you step over burning coal, right? When you get to the other side, everything changes within you, right? You look back and you say, if I did that, what else can I do? Right?
Absolutely, I had the same feeling. Like,
There is no mindset limit at that point, right? You reach an astronomical level, right? When you do that, when you actually look back and you actually see what you did, right? It's a mindset. And this kind of situations, another one is it's skydiving, right? A lot of people are so afraid of skydiving, right? Maybe I'll share some pictures on the one of the next episodes, see how we can manage that, with the skydiving, right? Everybody's scared, everybody's creating all these scenarios in their mind. It's like, what if and what that, and right. And it's hard until you jump,
it's
right?
I know
it's
what you're talking
it's
about because I jumped twice.
you know and it's harder until you jump. And when you jump, you feel this, like, there is no pressure, there is nothing holding you, there is literally, you're floating, right? And let's be honest, the instructor you're jumping is not there to kill himself, right? The pilot is not there to crash the plane, right? It's like all
Yeah.
those scenarios are in people's minds, right? But when you actually do the jump, and the funny story, the instructor, I was literally hanging off the plane. I was strapped to him, right? And he said, well, we jump on three, right? And I was literally hanging outside the plane. And he said, one, and the two, we jumped. And then when we actually landed, he said, you know why we jumped at two and not at three? Because at three, people tend to grab onto something. right? Is that, instinct, the preservation instinct, that everybody has, it's like, hey, I got, oh shit, right? It's that oh shit moment. It's like, I gotta grab into something, right? So that's why it says we jumped on two, just for that reason alone, because people can jeopardize, you know, the whole experience just by doing
You just made me realize that I jumped on one. And I
that.
was telling everybody how brave I was that I jumped on one. And now you made me think probably the instructor pushed me out completely because I was strapped onto the guy. But when he said, I'm going to count till 3, and he said 1, I remember jumping. But I'm not sure if it was me or him now. You made me think about it. That's interesting. Because I did it twice and I had the same feeling. Yeah, I totally agree with you 1,000%. So you see, there's a chain of events that pretty much put you on a path, and there's a chain of events, and the similarities of our stories, they're like amazing. I did that in 2007, without maybe 2007, 2008, without connecting the dots that I'm going to become an entrepreneur in 2018. So 2006, 2007, I was still a business owner at the time, but I wasn't too active into it, and I was buying land. It wasn't too much required to do that as far as real estate experience goes. Is there a favorite book that you are recommending, like a beginning stepping stone? And we're gonna get in deeper and deeper on our next episodes, but like for a person that just wants to have a small shift, let's say, not something big, is there a favorite book that you have?
I always go to back to Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, um, right? Or Unlimited
Yeah,
Power.
that's
I
no,
think
Unleash the Power Within. That's the name
yeah.
of the book.
So
Yeah,
that was one of the main books that, the event it's based on the book, right? The book it's way older than the actually events started, right? So everything kind of what you learn in the book, he transitioned into more visual, more sound, more feeling into the events, right? So probably to start off, like I said, you gotta have a strong mindset, because the mindset is the foundation of the business, right? It is just like a house. You have a strong foundation, the house will gonna last longer, right? If you have a weak foundation, the house is not gonna last as long, right?
absolutely.
So
Yes.
that'll be my first recommendation. During the next episodes, I'll have a lot more recommendations on books that I read over time. And there are quite a few, right? There are a lot of lessons to learn. Um, and being an entrepreneur, it's not easy. And probably the hardest thing that I ever did was to take away that safety of the job, right? And go into full business owner and entrepreneur. Because when you're working a 9 to 5, right? Even though people call it job security, there is no job security. People are replaceable, right? Tomorrow,
Absolutely.
there is another guy with the same skill set as you, and he's charging less for the same skill set. He'll get your job, right? Because that's the nature of the capitalism, right? Somebody else can do the same thing you're doing, but he's 15% cheaper. Guess what? Me as a business owner, I'll pick that guy, right? Because he can do the same job you're doing for 15% less, right? As a pay. So technically, the job security, it's not security, right? It's just that, again, the mindset, the employee mindset. Hey, I have a job. I know there is a steady paycheck coming in all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Transitioning from that job security to being an entrepreneur, not knowing that tomorrow you might have bread on the table or you might not, right? A lot of people think, oh, he's an entrepreneur, he made it in life, but nobody knows how many times or how many weeks in a row I ate ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Oh
right?
man, I still love them.
Because it's not easy to get there, right? But once you get there, once you develop certain skills, right? Talking to people, right? Not necessarily becoming a public speaker, but another book that I really want to recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, right?
Yes.
Um,
A red book.
right. It's one of those things when you start talking to people and you have them understand that they're actually a solution for their problem. That's when your life will gonna change completely. That's when you're gonna be able to put a price on the value you're offering, right? And not
Absolutely.
necessarily making those people buy what you're selling. It's simply by providing them enough value, right, for what their need or what their problem is, and they can come back and pay you for it, right? That's what it
Absolutely.
is. It's an exchange, right?
So I just don't want to put a pressure on you and a commitment, but we're definitely going to do more episodes. We want to end tonight with this thought in mind that there is a process to becoming an entrepreneur, and there's a process to becoming a real estate investor, like you said, and there's also a process of becoming a fund manager as well. So everything has to have a solid foundation. That's
Right.
where everything starts. And now there are plenty of movements in this journey, and I am the witness, and I'm here today to say that I have the same thing with the W-2. I'm a union guy. I have the job. I don't have the job. I work for a year. I stay home a year. I jump back on board another year. I did not cut the umbilical cord yet. And the reason is because I did it 2 times already. Every time I reached $1 million, I did it. I cut it. Then I fell flat on my face. Then I went back to safety. Then I did it again. Then I went back to safety. And now the economy is doing it all over again with me. And I went back to safety. This time, instead of going to safety, I'm going to the riskiest investment ever, into commercial real estate. And why am I saying it riskier? Because I don't know it. I just didn't conquer the ins and outs of it. It's not going to be riskier when I know how to deal with it. And this is where I'm going to have lots of questions for you, because I know you already did this. You went through the process. You were the general partner. You were the guy that managed the building, that did everything. So I want to thank you very much for tonight. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the books. I just want to wrap it around a little bit because I'm still just a fraction confused. Would you recommend the book Unleash the Power Within, or would you recommend the actual event of Tony Robbins?
From what I understand, he's trying to reduce the number of events that he's gonna do in the upcoming years due to his voice. But I'll recommend them both. First, read the book, go through the book, kind of have an idea about what's going on, and definitely you wanna go and walk and do the fire walk, because
Experience. You want to experience.
a very powerful mindset trick, right? We can call it that. That's a very strong mindset shift that people will have once they do that, right? And one thing I really want to mention this is we don't know everything, right? We're not born into money. We never came from millions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You can learn the skills, right? It's even you go and you read pretty much everything what's out there, right? And that's doing it by yourself, right? It takes a long time. It takes a lot of energy to do this, right? You're gonna lose a lot of nights because you're trying to dedicate yourself and trying to learn the business, or you can take the shortcut and get a mentor, right? A lot of the things I learned in business were through mentors and coaches, because I figured out, hey, I better pay this guy the money, right? That was going to save me about 5 years of learning by myself, right?
Yeah, I agree with
Can
you.
always make more money, but time, nobody
You're
will
not
gonna
going to make
give you more time,
you're not going to
right?
make your
So
time back.
if you
Yes.
wanna hijack that route, definitely go towards the mentorship. Go and learn from somebody that is in the trenches, doing it every single day. because that's the fastest way to learn. That's the fastest way to learn a skill, right? And in the same time, you're gonna tap into networks of people. Just because you have that one mentor, you're gonna tap into networks of people that weren't even on your radar, few months prior, right? So this is a huge kind of takeaway, that I want to give to people. Hey, get a mentor, get a coach, get somebody, and cut that learning time in half, sometimes even more than half, right? Because now you have somebody that has all the tools, all the experience, all the knowledge, right, to guide you and put you on the right track. Not talking about
Absolutely.
connections, that's a whole different ball game, right? We're going to talk about, learning how to network and, ways to introduce yourself and things like that, in some of the future episodes. But this is one of the very key elements, right? Learn the business through a coach or through a mentor, somebody that will gonna pretty much take you by hand and guide you and tell you, hey, do this because this you're gonna succeed. Don't do that. I done it myself. I hit my head to the wall. I couldn't go through the wall. So don't do that because you're gonna happen the same thing with you. And people, generally are geared of fucking up. Sorry, my French, but people, even though they hear, hey, don't do that, they'll still go and do exactly that
Yeah, man, I
because
have this is human nature. Yes.
they wanna have that feeling. Is like, how does it feel to hit your head into the wall, right? But people generally they're gonna do exactly that, right? And it's part of the learning curve, right? You're gonna learn. Hey, it's like this guy told me to not do it. I've done it. I hit the wall. I'm not gonna do it again, right? So that's a learning lesson, right?
That's I
Uh,
so
yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah.
to come back again and again, get a mentor, get somebody that is in the trenches doing it every single day, no matter the business, right? We can talk about real estate, we can talk about any other business, we can talk about financial markets and hedge funds, we can talk about anything else. Just go and learn from somebody that is doing it every single day. That's his livelihood, right? Because that's where you're going to get the most value. Does it cost money? Yes, right? Because knowledge costs money. It took years, right, to learn to get to this level. When you're here and you have a mentor that is up here and you want to get there, right, you can pay the money and take the elevator, right? Or you can do it yourself and take the stairs. It's
And
your
I
choice.
so appreciate it because I had doubts before this call if I did the right thing by joining, and I'm going to plug it right here, Legends Equity Group. I joined them for commercial real estate because the same exact things hit me. I realized that if I'm going to read all the books, which I have right behind me, I picked them up, I'm going through it. I realized it's going to take me years to get to that general partner table. So I did pay the mentorship. I did went through some live events. So spending the money for education is an absolute, like right now, I think the biggest expense in my life is the mentorships. That's what I'm putting all my money into, the direct mentorships, and through them into their direct investments. So I took it a little bit notch over, and in the future episodes, we're going to talk about it. But yes, I actually invest in my mentors, and that's the reason why I keep my investments successful. Now, I thank you very much for your time, Marius. Marius Grigoras. I don't think I mentioned your name all the way from the very beginning. We're definitely going to come back with future episodes, and this was a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate you giving us this much today, Marius, out of your time.
Yeah, sure,
Thank
no
you,
problem.
guys.
Any time, and let's do some more because definitely there is more knowledge to be shared, and I feel like people should have access to that knowledge because I, in my experiences, I've been deprived by some of the knowledge, right? And I was so hungry for it that it cost me twice as much, right, to get that knowledge, right? But in the end, it was worth it. So, I think this podcast is gonna turn really good. There will be a lot of value that you and me both can offer. to your audience, and I think we can turn this into something great.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. Definitely looking forward for our next episode. Everyone Deserves a Chance is the name of the podcast. You guys can find it online. It's available on iTunes, also on Spotify. And I'm going to be dropping the video on my YouTube channel at Silvius Grant. Marius, thank you very much one more time. Have a great evening and happy Easter because we're right here. Take care.
Thank you so much. Likewise.